Hello all. So now we are going to look at the use reducer hook. First of all, we'll create a component use reducer .jsx. To okay. So when are we going to use the use reducer? I'll create a form here. Suppose this label where we want the table. So use reducer is a updated version, or not updated version means above the use state there is use reducer, because if you want to manage every time, suppose there are 10 inputs are there, there are 10 hooks are there, like for every, in order to write the code in a better way, use reducer is used to replace the use state. That's what it will do, like state set state. You will mention this for one state. Suppose if you want to handle another thing, there will be, to handle another state you will be mentioning some other state, right? State 2 comma set state 2 is equal to use state. You will write some other thing. So if you write, if there are many use state, when there are many use states are there, use reducer is going to come into picture. Like not to make the code to write in a clean way, you could separate all these things into a separate file and split the code. See, we could write without using the use state, also using the use reducer hook. That's why I'm taking a reducer. The syntax of the use reducer is, it will take const, it will return something is equal to use reducer. It will take reducer and also initial values. It will take the what is the reducer, I'll explain, and it will give the state which represents the initial values, and dispatch is there. So it will return this. So what is this? Basically, what is the reducer, what is initial value? Inside the reducer itself, we are going to be mentioning whatever the logic. Const reducer is equal to, it is a function, reducer function, state comma action, switch of action dot type, case input return triple dot state comma input is to action dot payload. This is how you have to do, and default you have to return state. Okay, this is the reducer function. Basically this reducer is pointing to this reducer. I will explain each and individual things. Initial values, we will provide initial values. I will take input, initial values are input, email, name. Okay, these are the initial values. This state means this initial values, it is pointing, the state points to the initial values, all the initial values that you are provided here. You could access using state.input, state.input like that. Dispatch is you have to return something, some action over here. See, reducer, inside the reducer it is taking state comma action, right? If you are passing here reducer function, if you are writing here this function, it is default taking two parameters. One is state, which is access to this initial values, and this state is pointing to this initial values. State is equal to initial values. State, it is pointing to the initial values, and action, it is pointing to the whatever you are passing. You are updating the state or something, anything like, suppose there is form, there is counter also. Let us make the counter. Suppose switch off action dot type. If it is input, okay, input. If it is email, if it is name, you have to update that thing. Case email, if it is email, you will update that thing. We will write the counter also. Case is 2. We will make the counter inside the increment. Return triple dot over the increment and decrement. I'll put the value y increment decrement. Case of, I'll lower the count is to 0. I'll provide here. If the case is the increment, we are going to make the count as count plus 1, right? Count is to state dot count plus 1. Okay. The case decrement, it is going to be return the state. Count is to state dot count minus 1. If it is the reset, return state comma count is to 0. Okay, this is there is one form will be there. I'll put here start change is equal to dispatching. Here while dispatching you have to pass an object. Inside the object you have to provide an action which action dot type. It is whole the type of this one is the input you are going to change, right? Input and payload you have to pass. Payload is to e dot target dot value. Target dot value to mention over here, and value is state dot input. State dot input. Okay, this is input and this is input email name, right? We're going to change all the input to email and email this to input email and the name is there, no? If you have written the placeholder, it would be good. Placeholder is equal to there is submit button. Submit. Long click is equal to handle submit. Type is equal to submit. Okay, we have to write one handle submit. We have to prevent the form default behavior. E dot prevent default, because the default behavior of the form is to whenever you're clicking on the button it is going to be a refresh and the page is going to be hard refresh. So I'm consoling the state here whenever the submit is happening, consoling the state values. This is for the form and I'm making the counter here. For the counter there will be two buttons. Button 1 increment on click is equal to dispatch of type is to increment here we are going to be pass the count is to state dot count. And another button we have to mention here. Okay, this is how it will look like. let's make it div. I'll explain it step by step. Use reducer hook. Counter increment, it is working fine. And see, the form is looking ugly, but we have to look at the functionality unnecessarily. Form, okay, I'll do the form. Now it is center. Let's put a margin to that one. Margin is 2 pixel. Okay. For the button, margin is to 10 pixel. We will put it. Now input and margin also. Now it's better. See, the thing is, what we are doing is count is to 0. Low input, email changing, name updating, incrementing this count 2, 3, 4, 5, submitting these things. See, count is 6. Email input update. What we are doing is we are writing the reducer. See, reducer is basically use reducer hook. Basically replaces the use state. If you are using the multiple use state, we could just replace the. We could have mentioned one for. We could have mentioned one use state for whole form and one use state for this count form. Or else we could put this code inside the use reducer rough. Just I'm mentioning here. You could split the code and export this thing. Export and import it here. Port reducer. Importing the reducer, and you could split this also. See, the code will become splitted in different files, so it is more readable and it is it is easy to now everything is same. Now it is clean. The code is clean now. That's how you could split the code using the use reducer. Increment in the count. Submitting. What you could replace the whole reducer, because if there is use state, you can't do that. You can't split it in different files. The whole logic of that whatever the state logic you could put inside one file and initial values, you could import that thing, so everything will be in a organized way, so that it looks very very neat and clean while writing the code. And the CSS you could do that like add in some padding, margins to all those things. It looks nice, but I want to explain you the code React.js how it works. This reducer, the way of reducer writing is this, like it default it takes to the two parameters, state and action. State represents this initial values. This is the updating thing. This is the destructuring, right? I have mentioned inside the use state how we have to update that thing. You have to return the everything, returning the everything. You are updating the specific property input action.payload like that. If it is the increment type, you are doing like that, increment and reset and all those things. Action is, this action represents while dispatching something, like whenever you are writing here, whenever the on change is happening, you have to dispatch like what is it represent. Type is to, you have to provide the email some keyword. Based on this type only, it is identifying, okay, it is the type of email. For the type of email you are providing this payload, target.val, type and payload. Payload consists of whatever the data you want to update to the state. That's why it represents this object. Whenever you're dispatching, inside the dispatching you are passing something, it is considered as an action. That is why you would name it as something else. It is by default they mention like state comma action. That's why I'm provided here. I've written state comma action like that only. So this represents the whole object, whatever you are passing over there inside the dispatch. This is how it works. This is the state represent the initial values in the dispatch. While updating something, while changing something, while doing some action, you have to dispatch some action. That action type is whatever it is, input or count, increment type or decrement type you could specify, and payload you could pass what you want to update that thing over here. Like this you have to write. This is all about use reducer, which helps actually with the help of use context you could write it in a better way. I will explain it in next video, because using the use context we could manage the state for the entire application. I'll show you how to do that. As of now, thank you.